Rev up your engines!
Well, the Chinese are testing a magnetic floating car that goes 143 miles an hour. Maglev. You know anything about trains? They've tried maglev trains and stuff. Now, of course, there's only one main problem with it. One, if the magnetic power goes off and you go to 143 miles an hour, you're going to have problems. And the other is, of course, they have to build the track for the maglev. So, I mean, let's face it. In this country, we can barely take care of the roads that are out there full of holes, smashed up, right? And they're going to have maglev trails all over the country, right? That's going to happen too, you know. They tried it out in Jiangsu in eastern China and had a 2.8-ton car floating 35 millimeters above the road, and it went up to 143 miles an hour. Of course, you know, people are saying, oh, well, then you won't have range anxiety. You won't have a battery in the car. It'll be magnetic levitation to make it go. So it'll, you know, hardly have to use any energy at all, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and it'll cost $8 trillion to build roads that anybody will be able to use to go anywhere, and that would take forever, too. So now, granted, since the 1980s, China, Japan, some other countries, they have maglev trains that go fast, right? Yeah, they're trains. They're on train tracks that they had to build. It cost an awful lot of money to do magnetic levitation on, right? These are special train tracks. So all I got to say is you don't see maglev trains all over the place, and they've been doing it since the 80s. There's only a few of them. So I doubt if this will be any kind of serious transportation that we're going to have magnetic levitation cars for ourselves. By Buffington says, I have intermittent spongy brakes. I got 2011 Ford Explorer. They get spongy. Sometimes they're normal. The weird thing is, my brakes roll back to normal when I have a full tank of gas. All right, well, I can actually give you a pretty educated guess. It sounds like a weird thing. You probably have a leak in your evap system. That's a system that recycles the air in your gas tank so you don't have hydrocarbon, smelly gas smell going to the atmosphere, right? You're low on gas. There's a bunch of air in there, right? It's got to go through the evap system. If the evap system has an evap leak, when that tank is getting low, there's all that extra air, that can make the brake spongy because it's not getting enough vacuum pressure, because this is a vacuum system, to the brake booster. So, you got 2011 Ford Explorer. I would say the first thing I'd do is I would change the check valve. Simple thing, it's a little check valve. Could be the check valve's gone bad. Now, if you change the check valve and fixes it, great. Scotty got a cheap fix for it. If not, it would probably need to fix the evap leak, and you may need a new brake booster, because the booster works on vacuum pressure, too. It could be the booster going out, but a lot of times it's that little check valve that goes into it. Between the Wheel says, how would a similar Kia stack up against Toyota and Honda? Well, it doesn't stack up all that well if it's got higher mileage. New Kias, new Toyotas, and Hondas. They're all going to run generally a while before things break down. But I see the Kias break down at 90, 100,000 miles. Toyotas and Hondas might go 2, 3, 400,000 before they get any serious breakdown. So if you're going to buy a used Toyota or Honda, you can get one with 150, 180. It still might run quite some time. A used Kia with that kind of mileage, I doubt it. From my experience, they don't last as long. Now, if you're talking about low mileage ones, you can probably buy the Kia for less than half of the price of the Toyota or Honda. You might say, oh, I'll save some money. Higher mileage ones, I wouldn't touch the Kia with a 10-foot pole, because they will break down as they get older. That's just how those things are made. They're not made as well. Eckor says, my car overheats when the AC is on in traffic. Got a 4Runner, 224,000 miles. When I'm in traffic, the temperature rises and I have to turn the AC off. And overheating doesn't happen on highway speed. What do you think it is? Since it doesn't do it on a highway and it does it on town, you got some kind of problem with your cooling fans. They could be intermittent. They could be shorting out. Now, it's an older one. You say it's a 98. Well, realize cooling fans have relays. First, get some new relays. It could just be the relays are burning out, right? If not, when you are sitting idling waiting, what you want to do is watch. And if the cooling fans don't come on and off regularly and stay on when the temperature's getting hotter, you're going to have to replace the cooling fans. They're just starting to wear out from old age. 98, they will. It will do it when you're idling. You can go aftermarket. You don't have to buy the expensive dealer ones. Buy on Unique Hybrid. Validate my iUnique decision. I was thinking about buying Hyundai iUnique. It's a competitor to the Prius, but I chose not to buy the Hyundai Unique because I read an article that said it's of July 2022. They're not going to make any more hybrids, only electric vehicles. I think you made a very wise decision. One, I wouldn't buy a Hyundai anyways. They're not, the quality of them isn't all that great. But why would you buy one of their hybrid cars when they say, we're not going to make them anymore? It's bad enough getting parts for them as it sits now. Then when it ages and they don't make it anymore, you won't be able to get parts. Understand this. There's no law in the United States that says people have to make parts for their cars except while under their warranty. And they don't even have to make the parts as long as they're available somewhere so they can fix your car under warranty free. That's all they have to do. So when that Ioniq would have been 5, 6 years old, you may not even be able to get parts for it all, and they don't care. And I've seen that with hybrid cars where you can't get the batteries anymore because they don't make them for that particular model anymore. So, you get into that level of technology, you want to stick with the big boys. You want to stick with Toyota Prius, that's a hybrid that's been out for 20-something years. You don't want to go with the new guys. Oh, we're not going to make those anymore. Too bad. Ha ha. Saul says, I got a broken vent in my Ford Ranger. My Ford Ranger has a broken vent, a tiny one to the right of the stereo. What can I do? Well, here's the thing. What's broken? The problem with those things are the vents themselves. They're just the plain old mechanical ones. They're so cheaply made. A lot of times, what you can do, depending on what part is broken, a lot of times they just snap on the little angled vent parts. Get some super glue. Glue it together, hold it together for 5 minutes, it'll stay where it is. And what I find the best thing to do with vents is, because they're made so cheap and they're always breaking this, it's best to kind of put them in a position where you want, where they're blowing at you. If you want it drivers, AC blowing in your face. You can even super glue them in place, then you don't touch them anymore, then they won't break anymore. That's the main thing, is moving around all the time is going to snap them. And I've often done it in my own cars. I point it at my head, and now super glue them in place. Then I never have to touch them again. And then they won't flap up when you go down the road, and all of a sudden the wind blows, you hit a bump, and it moves the other way. It will stay in place if you super glue them in place. I've done that. A lot of my customers have done that too. As the cars get older and the plastic gets brittle, it's better to glue them in place, leave them there so they don't flop around, and then they just blow higgly-piggly wherever they want to go. CarMax says, my girlfriend's 2015 Nissan Sentra needs a transmission, and we have $4,000 to pay off on the thing. She bought a 2015 Nissan Sentra from CarMax 4 years ago. The tranny just went out. It's going to cost $4,700 to replace. Is it worth to fix it? She still owes $4,100 for it to be paid off. All right, here's the thing. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You're going to spend $600 more than you owe for the thing to fix the transmission, and you owe $4,100 on it. So basically, you'd be $600 in the hole, right? If I were you, I would just eat it and find another vehicle. Those are crappy vehicles anyways. You're already going to be $600 in the hole. I would try selling it, see what you can get for it as it is, Leave it. They're junk. You didn't give the mileage the thing has, but it's 2015, so I'm sure it's got a certain amount of mileage. Probably time to throw it away. I wouldn't go further. I don't think it's worth putting any more money in that thing. It'd be foolhardy. Totally Hogan says, my brakes went out in my 97 Silverado. Is it normal for the brakes to go out when my rear differential carrier bearing goes out? All right, here's the thing. If the differential went bad enough, the rear differential's having too much in and out play, yes, because then your wheels, the tires, they'll be going in and out a little. They'd be rubbing the brakes as they go in and out, and they can make your brakes go out because they're going in and out, in and out. Now, I'm not talking about big like this. I'm talking about a few thousandths of an inch, but it's plenty enough to keep rubbing, and it can destroy your brakes because, of course, the brakes are bolted to your rear axle. If the rear axle inners are going in and out, it's going to wear the brakes because they'll keep pushing in and out on them as you drive down the road. So that is totally plausible. I've seen it happen many times. Especially on the GMs, they've got somewhat weak rear ends in their pickup trucks. So they've had a history of problems with them as they age in the last few decades because they make a lot of the crap in Mexico and they just don't put it together right. Some foolery says, I see oil on a store shelf and it says it lasts 20,000 miles. What's up with this? I'm sure it's some do-good environmentalist, but what did they do to make it last so many miles? They just put a new advertising slogan on it. There was one while back that they said you could change your oil every 20,000 miles. And then the funny thing was when you turn the bottle to the backside, it said, a warning, this may void manufacturer's warranties. It depends on how you drive. You could actually get 20,000 miles out of an oil change if you only drove 65 miles on the highway all the time, because highway mileage is equivalent to 10% city driving. And since you're going at a high speed and it's hot, it boils all the water and impurities out of the oil and it doesn't get that dirty. Say you live 2,000 miles from California. Change your oil before you take a trip. Drive to California, drive it back. Then check the oil and you see it'll look still really clean because it doesn't get worn on the highway. But stop and go city traffic, I'd never go more than 5,000 miles to change the oil because it gets dirty, clogged up, and makes a giant mess. Your engine will wear out. Oil is cheap. Oil changes are easy to do. Do it yourself. Watch my videos. Do it right. Then you won't get ripped off. Who knows what oil they're using at the oil change places? They're generally bulk in a big container, the cheapest stuff they can buy. You buy the good stuff, do it yourself, your car will last the longest. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.